Alright guys, today we're going to be reading a book. It's called Scouting for Boys, 1908, A Handbook for Instruction in Good Citizenship Through Woodcraft by Lord Baden-Powell of Gilwell. Forward. I was a boy once. The best time I had as a boy was when I went as a sea scout with my 4 brothers about on the sea round the coast of England. Not that we were real sea scouts, because sea scouts weren't invented in those days, but we had a sailing boat of our own on which we lived and cruised about, at all seasons and in all weathers, and we had a jolly good time, taking the rough with the smooth. Then in my spare time as a schoolboy, I did a lot of scouting in the woods in the way of catching rabbits and cooking them, observing birds and tracking animals and so on. Later on, when I got into the army, I had endless fun big game hunting in the jungles in India and Africa, and living among the backwoodsmen in Canada. Then I got real scouting in South African campaigns. Well, I enjoyed all this kind of life so much that I thought, why should not boys at home get some taste of it too? I knew that every true red-blooded boy is keen for adventure and open-air life, and so I wrote this book to show you how it could be done. And you fellows have taken up so readily that now we are not only hundreds of thousands of Boy Scouts, but over 6 million about the world. Of course, a chap can't expect to become a thorough backwoodsman all at once without learning some of the difficult arts and practices that the backwoodsman uses. If you study this book, you will find tips in it showing you how to do them. And in this way, you can learn for yourself instead of having a teacher to show you how. Then you will find that the object of becoming an able and efficient Boy Scout is not merely to give you fun and adventure, but that like the backwoodsmen, explorers, and frontiersmen who you are following, you will be fitting yourself to help your country and to be of service to other people who may be in need of help. That is what the best men are out to do. A true scout is looked up to by other boys and by grown-ups as a fellow who can be trusted, a fellow who will not fail to do his duty however risky and dangerous it may be, a fellow who is jolly and cheery no matter how great the difficulty before him. I put into this book all that is needed to make you a good scout of that kind, so go ahead, read the book, practice all that it teaches you, and I hope that you will have half as good as a time as I have had as a scout. Introduction. To those who are reading this new edition of Scouting for Boys for the first time, it may be of interest to set down what information it has been possible to glean out about the way in which the book was composed. Owing to the kindness of Lady Baden-Powell, BP's private diaries and letters have been read, and from these some fresh facts can be given. Another source of information is the portion of the original manuscript now in the possession of IHQ. The story is far from complete, but we know much more than was available even 12 months ago. The manuscript is on many kinds of paper and was evidently written. Okay, I think this is just a waste of time. I'm going to go on to chapter 1. They're just talking about drafts and stuff like that. Okay, chapter 1, Scout Craft, Hints to Instructors. Instruction in scouting should be given as far as possible through practices, games, and competitions. Games should be organized mainly as team matches, where the patrol forms the team and every boy is playing, none merely looking on. Strict obedience to the rule to be at all times insisted on as instruction in discipline. The rules given in the book as to games may be altered by scoutmasters where necessary to suit local conditions. The ideas given here are merely offered as suggestions upon which it is hoped that instructors will develop further games, competitions, and displays. Several of the games here are founded on those in Mr. Thompson Seton's Book of Woodcraft called Spearing the Sturgeon, Quick Sight, Spot the Rabbit, Bang the Bear, Hostile Spy. A number of non-scouting games are quoted from other sources. The following is a suggestion for the distribution of the work for the first few weeks. It is merely a suggestion and in no sense binding. Remember that the boy on joining wants to begin scouting right away, so don't dull his keenness, as is so often done by too much preliminary explanation at first. Meet his wants by games and scouting practices, and instill elementary details bit by bit afterwards as you go along. NB. The previous paragraph was in former editions of this book, but it was in some cases ignored by scoutmasters, with the result that the training was a failure. Remember also to start small. 6 or 8 carefully chosen boys will be enough to begin with, and after they have received scout training for a month or two, they will be fit to lead and instruct fresh recruits as they are admitted. First evening indoors. Address the boys on scoutcraft, giving a summary of the whole scheme as in chapter with demonstrations or lantern slides. Form patrols and give shoulder nods. Following days, practical work outdoors if possible from the following. Alternatives according to weather in town or country, indoors or out. Parade, break national flag and salute it. Scouting game. Practice salute signs, patrol calls, scouts chorus, etc. Practice making scout signs on ground. Tie knots. Make ration bags, leather buttons, etc. Self-measurement by each scout of span, cubit, finger, joint, stride, etc. Send out scouts independently or in pairs to do a good turn, to return and report how they have done it. March out to patrol to see the neighborhood. Make them note direction of starting by compass, wind, and sun. Notice and question them on details seen. Explain landmarks. Practice scouts pace. Judge distances. Play a scouting wide game. Or indoors if wet, jiu-jitsu. Scouts war dance. Boxing. Scouts chorus and rally. Campfire yarns from this book or from books recommended. Or rehearse a scout play or whole debate, Kim's game, etc. Patrols to continue practice in these throughout the week in their own time or under the scoutmaster, with final games or exercises on the following Saturday afternoon. If more evenings than one are available in the week, of the subjects might be taken in turn more fully each evening and rehearsals carried out of a display. Campfire yarn number 1. Scouts work. Peace Scouts, Kim, boys of Mafeking. I suppose every boy wants to help his country in some way or other. There is a way by which he can do so easily, and that is by becoming a Boy Scout. A scout in the army, as you know, is generally a soldier who is chosen for his cleverness and pluck to go out in front to find out where the enemy is and report to the commander all about him. But besides war scouts, there are also pace scouts, men who in peacetime carry out work for which requires the same kind of pluck and resourcefulness. Those are the frontiersmen of the world, the pioneers and trappers of North America, the colonists of South America, the hunters of Central Africa, the explorers and missionaries over Asia, and all wild parts of the world, the bushmen and drovers of Australia, the constabulary of Northwest Canada and of South Africa. All these are peace scouts, real men in every sense of the word and good at scoutcraft. They understand how to live out in the jungle. They can find their way anywhere and are able to read meanings from the smallest signs and foot tracks. They know how to look after their health when far away from doctors. They are strong and plucky, ready to face danger, and always keen to help each other. They are accustomed to take their lives in their hands and risk them without hesitation if they can help their country by doing so. They give up everything, their personal comforts and desires, in order to get their work done. They do it because it is their duty. The life of frontiersmen is a grand life, but it cannot suddenly be taken upon by any man who thinks he would like it, unless he has prepared himself for it. Those who succeed best are those who learned scouting while they were boys. The life of a frontiersman is a grand life, but to live it, you must prepare yourself in advance for difficulties that may arise. Scouting is useful in any kind of life you like to take up. A famous scientist has said that it is valuable for a man who goes in for science. And a noted physician pointed out how necessary it is for a doctor or a surgeon to notice small signs as a scout does and know their meaning. So I am going to show you how you can learn scout craft for yourself and how you can put it into practice at home. It is very easy to learn and very interesting when you get into it. You can best learn by joining the Boy Scouts. The Adventures of Kim. A good example of what a Boy Scout can do is found in Rudyard Kipling's Story of Kim. Kim, or to give him his full name, Kimball O'Hara, was the son of a sergeant of an Irish regiment in India. His father and mother died while he was a child, and he was left to the care of an aunt. His playmates were all native boys, so he learned to talk their language and know their ways. He became great friends with an old wandering priest and traveled with him all over northern India. One day he chanced to meet his father's old regiment on the march, but in the visiting camp he was arrested on suspicion of being a thief. His birth certificate and other papers were found on him, and the regiment, seeing that he had belonged to them, took charge of him and started to educate him. But whenever he could get away for holidays, Kim dressed himself in Indian clothes and went among the natives as one of them. After a time, he became acquainted with a Mr. Lurgan, a dealer in old jewelry and curiosities, who, owing to his knowledge of natives, was also a member of the government intelligence department. This man, finding that Kim had such special knowledge of native habits and customs, saw that he could make a useful agent for government intelligence work. He therefore gave Kim lessons at noticing and remembering small details, which is an important point in the training of a scout. Kim's training. Lurgan began by showing Kim a tray full of precious stones of different kinds. He let him look at it for a minute, then covered it with a cloth and asked him to state how many stones and what sorts were there. At first, Kim could remember only a few and could not describe them very accurately, but with a little practice he soon was able to remember them all quite well, and so also with many other kinds of articles which were shown to him in the same way. At last, after much other training, Kim was made a member of the Secret Service and was given a secret sign, namely a locket or badge to wear around his neck, and a certain sentence, which, if said in a special way, meant he was one of the Secret Service. Kim in Secret Service. Once when Kim was traveling in the train, he met a native who was rather badly cut about the head and arms. He explained to the other passengers that he had fallen from a cart when driving to the station. But when Kim, like a good scout, noticed that the cuts were sharp and not grazes, such as you would get by falling from a cart, so did not believe him. While the man was tying a bandage over his head, Kim noticed that he was wearing a locket like his own, so Kim showed him his. Immediately, the man brought into the conversation some of his secret words, and Kim answered with the proper ones in reply. Then the stranger got into a corner with Kim and explained to him that he was carrying out some Secret Service work and had been found out and was hunted by some enemies who had nearly killed him. They probably knew he was in the train and would therefore telegraph down the line to their friends that he was coming. He wanted to get his message to a certain police officer without getting caught by the enemy, but he did not know how to do it if they were already warned of his coming. Kim hit upon the solution. In India, there are a number of holy beggars who travel about the country. They are considered very holy, and people always help them with food and money. They wear paint next to no clothing, smear themselves with ashes, and paint certain marks on their faces. So Kim set about disguising the man as a beggar. He made a mixture of flour and ashes, which he took from the bowl of a pipe, undressed his friend, and smeared the mixture all over him. He also smeared the man's wounds so they did not show. Finally, with the aid of a little paint box, which he carried, he painted the proper face marks on the man's forehead and brushed his hair down to look wild and shaggy like that of a beggar, and covered it with dust so that the man's own mother would not have known him. Soon afterwards, they arrived at a big station here on the platform. They found the police officer to whom the report was to be made. The imitation beggar pushed up against the officer and got scolded by him in English. The beggar replied with a string of native abuse into which he mixed the secret words. The police officer at once realized from the secret words that this beggar was an agent. He pretended to arrest him and marched him off to the police station where he could talk to him quietly and receive his report. Later, Kim became acquainted with another agent of the department, an educated native, and was able to give him great assistance in capturing 2 officers acting as spies. These and other adventures of Kim are well worth reading because they illustrate the kind of valuable work a Boy Scout can do for his country in times of emergency if he is sufficiently trained and sufficiently intelligent. The Boys of Mafeking. We had an example of how useful boys can be on active service when a corps of boys was formed in the defense of Mafeking, 1899 to 1900, during the South African War. Mafeking, you may know, was a small, ordinary country town out on the open plains of South Africa. Nobody ever thought of it being attacked by an enemy. It just shows you how, in war, you must be prepared for what is possible, not only what is probable. Here's a map of South Africa. If you look carefully, you will find Mafeking and many other places mentioned in this book. When we found we were to be attacked at Mafeking, we ordered our garrison to the points they were to protect, some 700 trained men, police, and volunteers. Then we armed the townsmen, of whom there were some 300. Some of them were old frontiersmen and quite equal to the occasion. But many of them were young shopmen, clerks, and others who had never handled a rifle before. Altogether, then, we only had about 1,000 men to defend the place, which was about 5 miles round and contained 600 white women and children and about 7,000 natives. Every man was of value, and as the weeks passed by, and many were killed and wounded, the duties of fighting and keeping watch at night became harder for the rest. The Mafeking Cadet Corps. It was then that Lord Edward Cecil, the chief staff officer, gathered together the boys of Mafeking and made them into a cadet corps. He put them in uniform and drilled them, and a jolly, smart, and useful lot they were. Previously, we had used a large number of men for carrying orders and messages, keeping lookout and acting as orderlies, and so on. These duties were now handed over to the boy cadets, and the men were released to strengthen the firing line. The cadets, under their sergeant major, a boy named Goodyear, did good work, and well deserved the medals they got at the end of the war. Many of them rode bicycles and were thus able to establish a post by which people could send letters to their friends in different forts or about the town without going out under fire themselves. For those letters, we made postage stamps which had on them a picture of cadet bicycle orderly. I said to one of the boys on one occasion when he came in through a rather heavy fire, "You will get hit one of those days riding about like that when the shells are flying." "I pedal so quick, sir, they'll never catch me," he replied. These boys didn't seem to mind the bullets one bit. They were always ready to carry out orders, though it meant risking their lives every time. Would you do it? Would you do any of that? If an enemy were firing down the street and you had to take a message across to a house on the other side, would you do it? I'm sure you would, although you probably wouldn't much like doing it. But you want to prepare yourself for such things beforehand. It's just like taking a header into cold water. A fellow who is accustomed to diving thinks nothing of it. He has practiced it over and over again. But ask a fellow who has never done it, and he will be afraid. So too with a boy who has been accustomed to obey orders at once, whether there is risk about it or not. The moment he has to do a thing, he does, no matter how great the danger is to him, while another chap who has never cared to obey would hesitate, and then be despised even by his former friends. But you need to have war in order to be useful as a scout. As a peace scout, there is lots for you to do any day, wherever you may be. Campfire yarn number 2. What scouts do. Living in the open, woodcraft, chivalry, saving life, endurance, love of country. The following things are what you have to know about to become a good scout. Living in the open. Camping is the joyous part of a scout's life, living out in God's open air among the hills and the trees, and the birds and the beasts, and the sea and rivers. That is living with nature, having your own little canvas home, doing your own cooking and exploration. All this brings health and happiness, such as you can never get among the bricks and smoke of the town. Hiking too, where you go further afield, exploring new places every day, is a glorious adventure. It strengthens you and hardens you so that you won't mind wind and rain, heat and cold. You take them all as they come, feeling that sense of fitness that enables you to face any old trouble with a smile, knowing that you will conquer in the end. But of course, to enjoy camping and hiking, you must know how to do it properly. You have to know how to put up a tent or a hut for yourself, how to lay and light a fire, how to cook your food, how to tie logs together to make a bridge or a raft, how to find your way by night as well as by day in a strange country, and many other things. Very few fellows learn these things when they are living in civilized places, because they have comfortable houses and soft beds to sleep in. Their food is prepared for them, and when they want to know the way, they just ask a policeman. Well, when those fellows try to go scouting and exploring, they find themselves quite helpless. Take even your sports hero and put him down in the wilderness alongside a few trained in camping, and see which can look after himself. High batting averages are not much good to him there. He is only a tenderfoot. Woodcraft. Woodcraft is the knowledge of animals and nature. You learn about different kinds of animals by following their tracks and creeping up to them so that you can watch them in their natural state and study their habitats. The whole sport of hunting animals lies in the woodcraft of stalking them, not in killing them. No scout willfully kills an animal for the mere sake of killing, but only when in want of food, unless it is harmful. By continually watching animals in the open, one gets to like them too well to shoot them. Woodcraft includes, besides being able to see the tracks and other small signs, the power to read their meaning, such as what pace the animal was going, whether he was frightened or unsuspicious, and so on. It enables the hunter also to find his way in the jungle or desert. It teaches him which are the best wild fruits and roots for his own food, or which are favorite food for animals, and therefore likely to attract them. In the same way, in inhabited places, you read the tracks of men, horses, bicycles, automobiles, and find out from these what has been going on. You learn to notice by small signs, such as birds suddenly starting up, that someone is moving near, though you cannot see him. By noticing the behavior or dress of people and putting this and that together, you can sometimes see that they're up to no good. Or you can tell when they're in distress and need help or sympathy, and you can then do what is one of the chief's duties of a scout, namely help those in distress in any possible way you can. Remember that it is a disgrace to a scout when he is with other people if they see anything big or little, near or far, high or low, that he has not already seen for himself. In the old days, the knights were the real scouts, and the rules were very much like the scout law which we have now. The knights considered their honor their most sacred possession. They would not do a dishonorable thing such as telling a lie or stealing. They would rather die than do it. They were always ready to fight and to be killed in upholding their king or their religion and their honor. Each knight had a small following of a squire and some men at arms, just as our patrol leader has his second or assistant and 4 or 5 scouts. The code of the knights. The knights patrol used to stick to him through thick and thin, and all carried out the same idea as their leader, namely, their honor was sacred, they were loyal to God, their king, and their country. They were particularly courteous and polite to all women and children and weak people. They were helpful to everybody. They gave money and food where it was needed and saved up their money to do so. They taught themselves the use of arms in order to protect their religion and their country against enemies. They kept themselves strong and healthy and active to be able to do these things well. You scouts cannot do better than follow the example of the knights. One great point about them was that every day they had to do a good turn to somebody, and that is one of their rules. When you get up in the morning, remember that you have to do a good turn for someone during the day. Tie a knot in your handkerchief or neckerchief to remind yourself of it. If you should ever find that you had forgotten to do your daily good turn, you must do two the next day. Remember that by your scout promise you are on your honor to do it. But do not think that scouts need to do only one good turn a day. They must do one, but if they can do 50, so much the better. A good turn need only be a very small one. It is a box or helping an old woman cross the street, or making room on a seat for someone, or giving water to a thirsty horse, or removing a bit of banana skin off the pavement. But one must be done every day, and it only counts when you do not accept any reward in return. Saving life. The man who saves the life of a fellow being, as he may do in the sudden appalling accidents which occur in big cities, mines, and factories in everyday life, is no less a hero than the soldier. Who rushes into the thick of the fight to rescue a comrade amid all the excitement of the battle. Thousands of Boy Scouts have won medals for life saving, and I hope that many more will do the same. It is certain that many of you will, at one time or another, get a chance to save a life, but you must be prepared for it. You should know what to do the moment an accident occurs, and do it then and there. It is not enough to read about it in a book and think that you know what to do. You must actually practice, and practice often, the things to be done, such as how to cover your mouth and nose with a wet handkerchief to enable you to breathe in smoke, how to tear a sheet into strips and make a rope for escaping from a fire, how to open a manhole to let air into a gassy sewer, how to lift and carry an insensible person, how to save and revive apparently drowned people, and so on. When you have learned all these things, you will have confidence in yourself, so that when an accident happens and everybody is in a state of fluster, not knowing what to do, you can quietly step out and do the right thing. Endurance. To carry out all the duties and work of a scout, a fellow has to be strong, healthy, and active. He can make himself so if he takes a little care about it. It means a lot of exercise, like playing games, running, walking, cycling, and so on. A scout should sleep much in the open. A boy who is accustomed to sleep with his window shut may catch cold when he first tries sleeping out. The thing is always to sleep with your windows open, summer and winter, and you will not catch cold. Personally, I cannot sleep with my window shut or with blinds down, and when I say in the country, I like to sleep outside the house. A short go of exercises every morning and evening is a grand thing for keeping you fit. Not so much for making showy muscle as to work all your internal organs and to work up the circulation of blood in every part of you. Every real scout takes a daily bath. If he cannot get a bath, he takes a good rub down daily with a wet, rough towel. Scouts breathe through the nose, not through the mouth. In this way, they don't get thirsty. They don't get out of breath so quickly. They don't breathe all sorts of disease germs that are in the air, and they don't snore at night. Deep breathing exercises are of great value for developing the lungs and for putting fresh air into the body, provided that they are carried out in the open air and are not overdone. For deep breathing, the breath must be taken in slowly and deeply through the nose, not through the mouth, till it opens out the ribs to the greatest extent. Then after a time, it should be slowly and steadily breathed out again without strain. But the best deep breathing, after all, is that which comes naturally from plenty of running exercise. Love your country. My country and your country did not grow of itself out of nothing. It was made by men and women by dint of hard work and hard fighting, often at the sacrifice of their lives. That is, by their wholehearted patriotism. In all you do, think of your country first. Don't spend the whole of your time and money merely to assume yourself, but think first of how you can be of use to the common good. When you have done that, you can justly and honestly enjoy yourself in your own way. Perhaps you don't see how mere a small boy can be of use to his country, But by becoming a scout and carrying out the scout law, every boy can be of use. My country before myself should be your aim. Probably, if you ask yourself truly, you will find you have at present got them just the other way about. I hope, if it is so, that you will from this moment put yourself right and remain so always. Don't be content like the Romans were, and some people now are, to pay other people to play your football or to fight your battles for you. Do something yourself to help keep the flags flying. If you take up scouting in that spirit, you will be doing something. Take it up not merely because it is good fun, but because by doing so you will be preparing yourself to be a good citizen not only of your country but of the whole world. Then you will have in you the truest spirit of patriotism, which every boy ought to have if he is worth his salt. The Elson murder. The following story, which in the main is true, illustrates generally the duties of a Boy Scout. A brutal murder took place many years ago in the north of England. The murderer was caught, convicted, and hanged chiefly through the scout craft of a shepherd boy. Woodcraft. The boy, Robert Hindmarsh, had been up on the moor tending his sheep and was finding his way home over a wild, out-of-the-way part of the hills, and when he passed a tramp sitting on the ground with his legs stretched out in front of him eating some food. Observation. The boy in passing noticed the tramp's appearance and especially the peculiar nails in the soles of his boots. Concealment. He did not stop and stare, but just took in these details at a glance as he went by without attracting much attention from the man, who merely regarded him as an ordinary boy. Deduction. When the boy got near home, some 5 or 6 miles away, he came to a crowd round a cottage. The old woman, Margaret Crozier, who inhabited it, had been found murdered. All sorts of guesses were made who had done the deed, and suspicion seemed to center on a small gang of 3 or 4 tramps who were going about the country robbing and threatening death to anyone who made any report of their misdeeds. The boy heard all these things. Then he noticed some peculiar footprints in the little garden of the cottage. The nail marks agreed with those he had seen in the boots of the man on the moor, and he naturally deduced that the man might have something to do with the murder. Chivalry. The fact that it was a helpless old woman who had been murdered made the boy's chivalrous feeling rise against the murderer, whoever he might be. Pluck and self-discipline. So although he knew that the friends of the murderer might kill him for giving information, he cast his fears aside. He went at once to the constable and told him of the footmarks in the garden and where he could find the man who had made them if he went immediately. Health and strength. The man up on the moor had got so far from the scene of the murder, unseen except by the boy, that he thought himself safe, and never thought of the boy being able to walk all the way to the scene of the murder and then to come back as he did with the police. So he took no precautions. But the boy was a strong, healthy hill boy and did the journey rapidly and well, so that they found the man and captured him without difficulty. The man is Willie Winter, a gypsy. He was tried, found guilty, and hanged at Newcastle. His body was then brought and hung on a gibbet near the scene of the murder, as was the custom in those days. 2 of the gypsies who were his accomplices were caught with some of the stolen property and were also executed at Newcastle. Kind-heartedness. But when the boy saw the murderer's body hanging there on the gibbet, he was overcome with misery at having caused the death of a fellow creature. Saving life. However, the magistrate sent for him and complimented him on the great good he had done to his fellow countrymen, probably saving some of their lives by ridding the world of such a dangerous criminal. Duty. He said, "You have done your duty, although it caused you personally some danger and much distress. Still, you must not mind that. It was your duty to help the police in getting justice done, and duty must always be carried out regardless of how much it costs you, even if you have to give up your life." Example. Thus the boy did every part of the duty of a Boy Scout. He exercised woodcraft, observations without being noticed, deductions, chivalry, sense of duty, endurance, kind-heartedness. He little thought the act which he did entirely of his own accord would years afterwards be held up as an example to you other boys in teaching you to do your duty. In the same way, you should remember that your acts may be watched by others after you and taken as an example too. So try to do your duty the right way on all occasions. Campfire yarn number 3, becoming a scout. Tenderfoot test, scout law, scout promise, scout sign and salute, investiture, scout uniform. To be a scout, you should join a scout patrol or a scout troop in your neighborhood with the written permission of your parents. But before becoming a scout, you must pass the tenderfoot test. This is a simple test just to show that you are worth your salt and mean to stick to it. The requirements for this are not very difficult, and you will find all you want to know in this book. When you have satisfied your scoutmaster, the man in charge of your troop, that you can do all the things and do them properly, you will be invested as a scout and be entitled to wear the tenderfoot badge. Scout law. The scout law contains the rules which apply to Boy Scouts all over the world and which you promise to obey when you are enrolled as a scout. The scout law is on the inside front cover of this book. Study it carefully so that you understand the meaning of every point. Scout promise. At your investiture as a scout, you will make the scout promise in front of the rest of the troop. The scout promise you will find on the inside front cover. This promise is a very difficult one to keep, but it is a most serious one, and no Boy Scout is a scout unless he does his best to live up to his promise. So you see, scouting is not only fun, but it also requires a lot from you. And I know I can trust you to do everything you possibly can to keep your scout promise. Scout motto. The scout motto is be prepared, which means you're always in a state of readiness in mind and body to do your duty. Be prepared in mind by having disciplined yourself to be obedient to every order, and also by having thought out beforehand any accident or situation that might occur, so that you know the right thing to do at the right moment and are willing to do it. Be prepared in body by making yourself strong and active and able to do the right thing at the right moment and do it. Scout badge. The scout badge is the arrowhead which shows the north on a map or on a compass. It is the badge of the scout because it points in the right direction and upwards. It shows the way in doing your duty and helping others. The 3 points of it remind you of the 3 points of the scout promise. The arrowhead has come to be the badge of the scouts in almost every country in the world. In order to distinguish one nationality from the other, the country's own emblem is often placed on the front of it. You see this, for instance, in the United States, where the eagle and the national shield of America stand in front of it, backed by the badge of the Worldwide Scout Brotherhood. The same is the case in many other countries. Under the arrowhead is a scroll with the scout motto, be prepared. The scroll is turned up at the ends like a scout's mouth because he does his duty with a smile and willingly. Beneath the scroll is a cord with a knot tied in it. This knot is to remind you to do a good turn daily to someone. Scout sign and salute. The scout sign is made by raising your right hand, palm to the front, thumb resting on the nail of the little finger, and the other fingers upright, pointing upwards. The 3 fingers remind a scout of the 3 parts of the scout promise. The scout sign is given at the making of the promise or as a greeting. When the hand held in this way is raised to the forehead, it is the scout salute. When to salute. All wearers of the scout badge salute each other once a day. The first to see the other scout is the first to salute, irrespective of rank. Scout will always salute as a token of respect at the hoisting of the flag, at the playing of the national anthem, to the uncased national colors, to scout flags, when carried ceremonially, and to all funerals. On these occasions, if the scouts are acting under orders, they obey the orders of the person in charge regarding to saluting or standing to the alert. If a scout is not acting under orders, he should salute independently. In all cases, leaders, if covered, should salute. The hand salute is only used when a scout is not carrying his staff and is always made with the right hand. Saluting when carrying a staff is done by bringing the left arm smartly across the body in a horizontal position, the fingers showing the scout sign just touching the staff. When in uniform, a scout salutes whether he is wearing a hat or not, with one exception, namely at religious services, when all scouts must stand at alert instead of saluting. The meaning of the salute. A man once told me that he was just as good as anybody else, and he was blowed if he ever would raise a finger to salute his so-called betters. He wasn't going to be a slave and a cowtoe to them, not he, and so on. That is a churlish spirit which is common among fellows who have not been brought up as scouts. I didn't argue with him, but I might have told him that he had the wrong idea about saluting. A salute is a sign between men of standing. It is a privilege to be able to salute anyone. In the old days, free men were all allowed to carry weapons, and when one met another, each would hold up his right hand to show that he had no weapon in it, and that they met as friends. So also when an armed man met a defenseless person or lady. Slaves or serfs were not allowed to carry weapons, and so had to slink past the freemen without making any sign. Nowadays, people do not carry weapons, but those who would have been entitled to do so, such as knights, esquires, and men-at-arms, that is, those living on their own property or earning their own living, still go through the form of saluting each other by holding up their hand to their hat or even taking it off. Wasters are not entitled to salute, and so should slink by as they generally do, without taking notice of the freemen or wage earners. To salute merely shows that you are a right sort of fellow and mean well to the others. There is nothing slavish about it. If a stranger makes the scout sign to you, you should acknowledge it at once by making the sign back to him, and then shake hands with the left hand, the scout handshake. If he then shows his scout badge or proves that he is a scout, you must treat him as a brother scout and help him. Investiture of a scout. Here is a suggested ceremonial for a recruit to be invested as a scout. The troop is formed in a horseshoe formation with scoutmaster and assistant scoutmaster in the gap. The recruiter with his patrol leader stands just inside the circle opposite to the scoutmaster. The assistant scoutmaster holds the staff and hat of the recruit. When ordered to come forward by the scoutmaster, the patrol leader brings the recruit to the center. When the scoutmaster then asks, "Do you know what your honor is?" the recruit replies, "Yes. Yes, it means that I can be trusted to be truthful and honest." Do you know the scout law? Can I trust you on your honor to do your best to live up to the scout promise? Recruit then makes the scout sign, and so does the whole troop while he gives the scout promise. Scoutmaster. I trust you on your honor to keep this promise. You are now one of the great world brotherhood of scouts. The assistant scoutmaster then puts on him his hat and gives him his staff. The scoutmaster shakes hands with them with the left hand. The new scout faces about and salutes the troop. The troop salutes. The scoutmaster gives the word, "To your patrol, quick march." The troop shoulders staves, and the new scout and his patrol leader march back to their patrol. Going on in scouting. When you have been invested as a scout, you can go on the next grade, that of second class scout. For this, you will learn the beginnings of many useful subjects. The badge of the second class scout is the scroll alone with the scout motto. No scout will want to remain second class for long, and you will become a first class scout as soon as you can. This will mean hard work tackling, signaling, map reading, hiking, first aid, and many other things. The first class badge consists of the arrowhead and the scroll both. You can also win proficiency badges for your hobbies. Scout uniform. The scout uniform is very like the uniform worn by my men when I commanded the South African Constabulary. They knew what was comfortable, serviceable, and a good protection against the weather, so scouts have much the same uniform. With a few minor alterations, the original scout uniform has met the ideas of scouts around the world and has been universally adopted. Of course, in extreme climates, it has to be modified to suit the seasons, but on the whole, The different nations in the temperate climates are dressed uniformly alike. Starting at the top, the broad-brimmed khaki hat is a good protection from sun and rain. It is kept on by a bootlace tied in a bow in front of the brim and going around the back of the head. This lace will come in handy in many ways when you camp. The hat has 4 dents in it. Then comes the neckerchief or scarf, which is folded into a triangle with the point at the back of the neck. Every troop has its own scarf color, and since the honor of your troop is bound up in the scarf, you must be very careful to keep it clean and tidy. It is fastened at the throat by a knot or a slide or woggle, which is some form of ring made of cord, metal, or bone, or anything you like. The scarf protects your neck from sunburn and serves many purposes, such as for a bandage or as an emergency rope. The scout shirt or jersey is a free and easy thing, and nothing could be more comfortable when the sleeves are rolled up. All scouts have them rolled up because this tends to give them greater freedom, but also as a sign that they are ready to carry out their motto. They only roll them down when it is very cold or when their arms may become sunburned. In cold weather, the shirt can be supplemented with warmer garments over or better under it. Shorts are essential to hard work and to climbing, to hiking and camping. They are less expensive and more hygienic than breeches or trousers. They give freedom and ventilation to the legs. Another advantage is that when the ground is wet, you can go about without stockings and none of your clothes gets damp. The stockings are held up by garters, with green tabs showing below the turnover of the stocking top. Personally, I consider shoes more suitable than high boots since they give better ventilation to the feet and therefore diminish the danger of chills and chafes which come from damp stockings, softening the feet when tightly laced boots are worn. Wearing the uniform. The scout kit, through its uniformity, now constitutes a bond of brotherhood among boys across the world. The correct wearing of the uniform and smartness of turnout of the individual scout makes him a credit to our movement. It shows his pride in himself and his troop. One slovenly scout, on the other hand, inaccurately dressed, may let down the whole movement in the eyes of the public. Show me such a fellow, and I can show you one who has not grasped the true scouting spirit and who takes no pride in his membership of our great brotherhood. Scout staff. The scout staff is a useful addition to the kit of the scout. Personally, I have found it an invaluable assistant when traversing mountains or boulder-strewn country, and especially in night work in forest or bush. Also by carving upon it various signs representing his achievements. This staff gradually becomes a record as well as a treasured companion to the scout. The scout staff is a strong stick about as high as your nose, marked in feet and inches for measuring. The staff is used for all sorts of things, such as making a stretcher, keeping back a crowd, jumping over a ditch, testing the depth of a river, keeping in touch with the rest of your patrol in the dark. You can help another scout over a high wall if you hold your staff horizontally between your hands and make a step for him. He can then give you a hand from above. Several staves can be used for building a light bridge, a hut, or a flagstaff. There are many other uses for the staff. In fact, you will soon find that if you don't have your staff with you, you will always be wanting it. If you get the chance, cut your own staff, but remember to get permission first.